Hey football fans, today we're going to figure out the top 10 most valuable running backs of the 2000s. Who's your pick? Clinton Portis, Ricky Williams, LT. How about Priest Holmes or Amon Green? Whoever it is, make your pick and stay tuned to the end to find out who it's going to be. The top 10 most valuable running backs of the 2000s. 2000, number 3, Eddie George, number 2, Edgerrin James, number 1, Marshall Faulk. 2001, number 3, Shaun Alexander, number 2 is Priest Holmes, number 1 is Marshall Faulk. 2002, number 3 is Clinton Portis, number 2 is Ricky Williams, number 1 is Priest Holmes. 2003, number 3 is LaDainian Tomlinson, number 2 is Amon Green, number 1 is Priest Holmes. 2004, number 3 is LaDainian Tomlinson, number 2 is Tiki Barber, number 1 is Shaun Alexander. 2005, number 3 is LaDainian Tomlinson, number 2 is Larry Johnson, number 1 is Shaun Alexander. 2006, number 3, Steven Jackson, number 2, Larry Johnson, number 1, LaDainian Tomlinson. 2007, number 3, Brian Westbrook, number 2, Adrian Peterson, number 1, LaDainian Tomlinson. 2008, number 3, Matt Forte, number 2, Michael Turner, number 1, D'Angelo Williams. 2009, number 3 is Maurice Jones-Drew, number 2 is Adrian Peterson, number 1 is Chris Johnson. Okay, coming in at number 10 is Priest Holmes. Holmes played in 7 out of the 10 years for the decade as he missed the entire 2006 season due to a spine injury. He led the league in rushing yards in 2001 with 1,555 and led the league in rushing touchdowns in 2002 and 2003, racking up a combined 48 touchdowns over the 2 years. He made the Pro Bowl and was selected as a first-team All-Pro 3 times in a row, in 2001, 2, and 3. He was also awarded the Offensive Player of the Year in 2002. Holmes racked up 6,658 yards on the ground and another 2,598 receiving yards and scored a total of 85 touchdowns for the decade. He scored a 1,175.63 on the FGV scale. Okay, number 9 on our list, Ricky Williams. Williams played in 8 out of the 10 years for the decade as he missed the entire 2004 season when he filed for retirement. He came out of retirement and played in 2005 and then missed the 2006 season due to violation of the league's substance abuse policy. He led the league in attempts in 2002 and 2003 with 383 and 392 respectively. He led the league in rushing yards in 2002 with 1,853. He made the Pro Bowl in 2002, the same year he was selected as a first-team All-Pro. He rushed for 8,198 yards, scored 62 rushing touchdowns for the decade. He added another 2,387 receiving yards and 9 more receiving touchdowns. He scored a 1,202.69 on the FGV scale. Number 8 is Thomas Jones. Jones was a rookie for the Cardinals in 2000 and played in all 10 years of the decade. He didn't crack the starting lineup until 2004 in Chicago. He made the Pro Bowl 1 time in 2008. He rushed for 9,217 yards and scored 62 rushing touchdowns for the decade. Adding in another 1,852 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, he scored a 1,213.01 on the FGV scale. Okay, number 7, a cheesehead, Amon Green. Green is the second player on the list to play in all 10 years during the decade. He was selected to the Pro Bowl in 4 straight years with the Packers, 2001 through 2004. He rushed for 8,876 yards and scored 59 rushing touchdowns and added another 2,881 receiving yards and 14 receiving touchdowns for the decade. He scored a 1,283.51 on the FGV scale. Coming in at number 6 is Tiki Barber. Barber was a rookie in 1997 and enjoyed a 10-year career. He would retire after the 2006 season, playing in 7 out of the 10 years for the decade. He would make the Pro Bowl 3 straight years, from 2000 to 2006, and was selected as a first-team All-Pro in 2005. He led the league in yards from scrimmage in 2004 and 2005, and he rushed for 9,514 yards and scored 52 rushing touchdowns for the decade. He added another 3,927 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. He scored a 1,289.56 on the FGV scale. Okay, we're heading out to Baltimore for number 5, Jamal Lewis. Lewis was a rookie in 2000 and came in second in the Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. He played in 9 out of the 10 years for the decade, missing the 2001 season with a knee injury. Lewis had a career year in 2003, leading the league in rushing yards with 2,066, making the Pro Bowl, being selected as a first-team All-Pro, and winning the Offensive Player of the Year award. He rushed for 10,607 yards and scored 58 rushing touchdowns for the decade. He added another 1,879 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. He scored a 1,295.97 on the FGV scale. Coming in at number 4 is Clinton Portis. Portis burst onto the NFL scene as a rookie in 2002, winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. He would go on to be selected to the Pro Bowl in 2003 and later in 2008, and Portis played in 8 out of the 10 years for the decade. He rushed for 9,696 yards, scoring 73 rushing touchdowns, and adding another 1,963 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. He scored a 1,315.59 on the FGV scale. Coming in at number 3, Edgerrin James. James, our first Hall of Famer on the list, played in all 10 years of the decade. He won the Offensive Rookie of the Year award in 1999, was selected to the Pro Bowl 4 times, and was selected as a first-team All-Pro once. He led the league in rushing attempts in 1999. He led the league in rushing yards in 1999 and 2000. He rushed for 10,693 yards and scored 67 rushing touchdowns in the decade. He added another 2,778 receiving yards and 7 receiving touchdowns. He is currently the Colts' all-time leading rusher. James scored at 1,438.10 on the FGV scale. Number 2, Shaun Alexander. Alexander played in 9 out of the 10 years in the decade, retiring after the 2008 season. He made the Pro Bowl 3 straight years in 2003, 4, and 5. He was selected as a first-team All-Pro in 2005. The same year, he led the league in rushing attempts with 370, rushing yards with 1,880, and rushing touchdowns with 27. Alexander was also awarded the Offensive Player of the Year and MVP awards for 2005 as well. He rushed for 9,453 yards and scored 100 rushing touchdowns for the decade. He added another 1,520 receiving yards and 12 receiving touchdowns. He is currently the all-time leading rusher in Seahawks history. He scored a 1,477.81 on the FGV scale. And the number 1 most valuable running back of the 2000s is LaDainian Tomlinson, LT. Only our second Hall of Famer on the list, Tomlinson was a rookie in 2001 and played in 9 out of the 10 years during the decade. He led the league in rushing yards twice, in 2006 and 2007, rushing touchdowns 3 times in 2004, 6, and 7, and yards from scrimmage in 2003. He won the Offensive Player of the Year and League MVP awards in 2006, was selected to the Pro Bowl 5 times, and was a first-team All-Pro 3 times. Tomlinson is currently the Chargers' all-time leading rusher and is number 7 on the NFL's career all-time rushing leaderboard with 13,684 yards. For the decade, he rushed for 12,490 yards and scored 138 rushing touchdowns. He added another 3,955 receiving yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. He scored 2,100.25 on the FGV scale. Okay, that's my top 10 most valuable running backs of the 2000s. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to come back in a few weeks and tune in to catch my walk through the most valuable running backs of the 2010s as we continue our march on to figure out who the most valuable running back of all time will be. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.